When ships appeared in orbit and strange artifacts materialized in meadows across the world, humanity held its breath. The government said almost nothing. The tabloids said everything. Scattered across the globe, 112 alien devices appeared, nicknamed looking glasses. Each one a semicircular mirror, over 10 feet high and 20 feet across, planted in fields and pastures. No one understood how they worked. No one knew why the aliens refused to meet us in person. The looking glasses were two-way communication devices, windows into rooms on the other side, rooms aboard ships circling high above the Earth. A team of scientists was assigned to each one. And so the strangest conversation in human history began. Linguist Louise Banks arrived at a sun-scorched military encampment in a farmer's pasture. At the center stood one of the looking glasses, housed inside a large tent. When she crossed a painted line on the ground, the mirror slowly grew transparent, an uncanny illusion of depth, as though she could walk straight into another room. And then one of them entered. It looked like a barrel suspended at the intersection of 7 limbs. The creature was radially symmetric, any of its limbs could serve as an arm or a leg. This one walked on 4 legs, with 3 non-adjacent arms curled at its sides. Its limbs had no distinct joints. They moved in a disconcertingly fluid manner, rippling beneath the torso, which rode atop them as smoothly as a hovercraft. 7 lidless eyes ringed the top of its body, so it never needed to turn around, every direction was forward. Its grey skin was textured like corduroy, arranged in whorls and loops. At the top of its body, a puckered orifice vibrated to produce sound, a brief, wet fluttering, like a dog shaking water from its fur. They called them heptapods. Louise began the painstaking work of learning their spoken language, which she designated Heptapod A. The heptapod pointed to itself with one limb, for terminal digits pressed together, and made a fluttering sound from the vibrating orifice atop its body. Louise played the sound back through a speaker. The heptapod confirmed it. But when Louise tried to mimic the sound herself, there was no reaction at all. The human vocal tract simply could not reproduce what the heptapod orifice created. They were stuck using recordings. Louise nicknamed the 2 heptapods she worked with Flapper and Raspberry. She learned that beneath their bodies was a second orifice, lined with articulated bony ridges, used for eating, while the one at the top was for breathing and speech. There were no other conspicuous openings. Progress was slow, but Louise pressed forward, word by painstaking word. When Louise proposed using writing to communicate, everything changed. The heptapod set up a flat circular screen on a pedestal. One of them inserted a limb into a large socket, and script appeared, vaguely cursive doodles, intricate and strange. But this was no ordinary writing. The heptapods did not write in lines or rows. Their sentences were built by fusing symbols together into sprawling, 2-dimensional designs, like fanciful praying mantids drawn in cursive, clinging to one another to form an impossible lattice. Each symbol could be rotated, stretched, and merged with others. A single continuous stroke might begin as part of one word, slide into another clause, and flare out as the backbone of a third, all integrated into a single, unified design. Louise called this writing system Heptapod B. It was a completely separate language from their speech. Where Heptapod A was sequential, one sound after another, Heptapod B was simultaneous, an entire sentence presented all at once, every element visible in a single glance. The heptapods were completely cooperative. They readily taught their language without requiring humans to teach English in return. When asked why they had come, each time they answered simply, to see. To observe. Sometimes they preferred to watch the humans in silence rather than answer questions. They never asked questions about anything. Whether scientists or tourists, they were an awfully incurious bunch. But in the looking glass sessions, they demonstrated something astonishing. When Flapper wrote a sentence describing their planet, 2 moons, one much larger than the other, an atmosphere of nitrogen, argon, and oxygen. Louise noticed that the very first stroke of the pen already participated in multiple clauses of the finished sentence. The heptapod had to know the entire sentence before it could write the first mark. They built their sentences not one word at a time, but stroke by stroke, each line weaving through the whole design simultaneously. The breakthrough in physics came not from geometry or algebra, but from an obscure principle of optics. When light passes from air into water, it changes direction. The common explanation is causal. The change in medium causes the change in angle. But there is another way to describe it. Fermat's principle of least time states that light always takes the fastest possible path between 2 points. To do this, the light must somehow know its destination before it begins moving. It must compute every possible route and choose the optimal one from the very start. This was the first physical concept the heptapods responded to with recognition, because for them, this was not an obscure reformulation. It was the obvious, fundamental way to describe reality. Where humans saw cause and effect, the heptapods saw purpose and optimization. Their entire mathematics was built on variational principles, on attributes that were only meaningful over a span of time, requiring knowledge of beginning and end simultaneously. As Louise practiced Heptapod B, something began to change in her mind. She had always thought in an internal voice, words spoken silently, one after another. But now, trance-like moments would come during the day when her thoughts were no longer verbal. Instead, she saw semigrams with her mind's eye, sprouting like frost on a window pane. Complex ideas would appear fully formed, all at once. Her mind hung balanced on the symmetry underlying the symbols. There was no direction in the way propositions connected, no train of thought moving along a particular route. All components in an act of reasoning had identical precedence, all equally powerful. She was developing a simultaneous mode of consciousness. And with it came something she had not expected. Memories began falling into place not sequentially, as ash laid down by a burning cigarette, but in enormous blocks, each measuring years in duration. Past and future became equally present. She began to remember things that had not yet happened. Louise came to understand that for the heptapods, language was not merely communication. It was action. It was performance. The heptapods already knew what would be said in every conversation, but the conversation still had to take place for their knowledge to be true. Like a wedding ceremony where everyone anticipates the words "I now pronounce you husband and wife," but until the minister speaks them, the marriage does not exist. For the heptapods, all language was performative. They did not use language to inform. They used language to actualize. To make real what they already knew would happen. Their mode of awareness was neither free nor bound as humans understood those concepts. They did not act according to will, nor were they helpless automatons. Their actions coincided with history's events, and their motives coincided with history's purposes. They acted to create the future. To enact chronology. The heptapods agreed to a form of exchange, but it was not trade. Each side would give something to the other, without telling the other what it would be beforehand. Neither party could request a specific gift. The value of the items exchanged was irrelevant. In previous exchanges, the heptapods had shared xenobiology lectures revealing that humans were more similar to them than any other species they had encountered. They had given lectures on their own history, filled with apparent non sequiturs. Once, they simply returned information that humans had already given them, which infuriated the State Department but carried no insult. During the final exchange, the heptapods presented what appeared to be material science, a new class of superconducting materials. The human gift was a presentation on the Lascau's cave paintings. The final gift exchange was also the last time any human would see the heptapods. After the exchange, Raspberry glided to its writing screen and composed a message. The heptapods were leaving. Not just the ones at this looking glass, all of them, everywhere on Earth, all at once. The image in the looking glass vanished so abruptly that it took a moment for Louise's eyes to register what she was seeing, the other side of the tent. The looking glass had become completely transparent. It was just glass now. All over the world, every looking glass went dark at the same moment. The ships left orbit. Analysis of the abandoned looking glasses revealed them to be nothing more than sheets of fused silica, completely inert. And the superconducting materials from the final exchange duplicated research just completed in Japan. The heptapods had given humanity nothing it did not already have. We never learned why they came, or why they left, or why they did anything they did. But they did leave something behind, in the minds of those who learned their language. Louise continued to practice Heptapod B for the rest of her life, though she would never progress further than she had when the heptapods were present. The language had changed the way she experienced time. Her consciousness still moved forward, moment by moment, like everyone else's. But her memory now extended in both directions. She remembered her future as clearly as her past. She knew she would fall in love with Gary, the physicist who worked beside her. She knew they would have a daughter. She knew the daughter's blue eyes and black hair, her laughter playing with a neighbor's puppy, her first steps, her teenage rebellions, her college graduation. And she knew that at 25, her daughter would die in a climbing accident. Louise saw all of this, the joy and the grief, laid out before her like a sentence in Heptapod B. Every element visible at once. Every stroke necessary to the whole. From the beginning, Louise knew her destination. She chose her route accordingly. When Gary asked her, "Do you want to make a baby?" she already knew everything that would follow. The entirety of her daughter's life, and its ending. But knowing the future did not feel like a cage. It felt like an instinct she was right in following, as urgent as catching a falling bowl, as natural as breathing. The heptapods had shown her that the universe could be read two ways. One causal, one teleological. One where events grow from past to future through cause and effect. And one where all events exist simultaneously, bound together by purpose, by a minimizing, maximizing purpose. Both interpretations were valid. Neither could be disproven. And Louise, standing in the moonlight with the man she loved, chose to say yes. She chose the joy and the grief together, as one inseparable design. She chose to make her daughter. She chose the whole story, knowing how it would end.